Talking about changing over to battery EVs. In December 2021, Akio Toyoda announced that Lexus would aim to realize a full lineup of battery EVs in all vehicle segments by 2030 and have battery EVs account for 100% of its vehicle sales in Europe, North America, and China, totaling 1 million units globally, and aims for battery EVs to make up to 100% of its global vehicle sales in 2035. If you're a Lexus Toyota fanboy, you would have heard that they are looking at rebooting their EV strategy and looking at accelerating EVs. The ETNG platform is just not good enough to make a profit and not efficient, as it shares the platform with hybrids, plug-ins, and gas-only versions. It's a great platform for hybrids and plug-in hybrids, but for EVs, they really need a dedicated skateboard-type platform. From recent news, it looks like 2027 or 2028 is when they'll be ready. And with the recent shakeup of the CEO, will this direction change even further? Time will tell, and smash that subscribe button so that when the news come out, you'll be informed. So based on this, there is 7 years before Lexus goes fully electric, and between now and 2030, we will slowly see new BEVs released from Lexus. That may change based on whatever announcements they're going to make, but when you look at their competitors, Mercedes already have 6 EQ models announced. BMW has the i7, iX, and the i4. And the Genesis, a new player in the luxury market, having the G80, GV60, and the GV70 already announced. And then when you look at Lexus, they have the UX300E. The older version had a smaller battery, and now the newer battery is much bigger, but it's only available in some markets. It's not available in North America. And the RZ450E, which was announced quite some time ago, still hasn't seen the market yet. It is closely coming to the market, but it's still later in 2023. And it seems like it's going to be limited supplies globally. At least in Canada, it's only available in British Columbia and Quebec when it officially comes out. So are you ready for BEVs? Leave in the comments below and let me know, because I feel that some aren't ready yet. The reason why I started this video is because I read this news article from a television station in Canada called CTV News in Ottawa. So let's see what happens to this owner and why she was frustrated while using the charging stations along Ontario's major highways, the 401. So Highway 401 is one of our major highways in Ontario that connects like Toronto to Ottawa, actually not to Ottawa, but to Kingston, and gets you all the way to Ottawa and gets you actually into Quebec. It's a major highway that a lot of people use. And in between stops, they will actually have these en routes where they're resting stations where you can refuel and now you can recharge. And there will be like coffee, there's restaurants, a food court, a big washroom to allow people to rest. And then they can move on to their next stop. So let's see how this article goes. So they're saying that there's an Ottawa woman. She was left frustrated and upset after having issues charging her electric vehicle at en routes on the 401 over the holiday season. The lady and the husband traveled from Ottawa to near Bowmanville on December 20th, and it's her first time to take her new car on a long distance trip. What would actually be a 3.5 to 4 hour trip actually took 5 to 6 hours. That's what she claimed. So she claimed that her first stop was Napanee en route, and it actually had a slow EV charger, which she was warned about before. So after 30 minutes, she decided to drive to the next station, which is Trenton, and that was almost an hour away. When she got to Trenton, she says that all the chargers failed. She was not able to charge, so she gave a call to the customer service people, and the agent said, "Oh, it's been like that for days." So she was extremely frustrated because it's not like the charging stations are everywhere. Like along this 401 is actually very convenient, but having all charging stations to fail, it means people who rely on them cannot charge and they'll be stuck. There's not that many like gas stations, right? So what then she said is, I mean, they're few and far between. I was upset that this had been reported several days earlier and a technician hadn't even looked at it. So the stations that run by IV Charging Network, which is a company owned by Hydro One and Ontario Power Generation, which is the main uh, distributors of electricity in Ontario, and they actually went and gave a statement to the CTV News. And they just said that the Trenton and Napanee locations are now fully functioning. It doesn't work that way, right? Things don't work, and now they suddenly, when they get reached out by the news crew, and then they actually fix everything and just say that it's fixed. And then their statement was, we understand that it can be stressful for EV drivers when we can't deliver the charging experience they expect, and we apologize to any customers who have a less than optimal charging experience with us. Well, when you have no battery, that range anxiety really kicks in, right? So let's see what else it says in this article. So rolled out last year, these charging stations are part of a push by the province to actually to get people to buy EVs and encourage people to feel comfortable driving the vehicles for long distances by providing them at the rest stops throughout Ontario. But there are similar complaints that there are defective charging stations and have been made online by users. All right, so the manager of the IV charging network said that there are many external factors that can affect the charging speeds, and that while they do monitor their network, sometimes updates aren't posted quickly enough. Well, updates takes 3-4 days. I'm not too sure. And then they said, we are aware of the challenges that customers may experience at selected charging stations across our network and less than optimal charging speeds. We are working with our supplier to resolve these issues as soon as possible and appreciate our customers' continued patience. Well, if you own one of these cars and you're using that network, I don't think there's much patience, especially when it tells you that you only have 100 kilometers and the next charging station is 120 kilometers away. It just doesn't work that way. And then they're saying that the IV charging network says that any affected locations will have charging fees reduced to compensate customers. Well, I don't know because if the charging is slow and if they have, let's say they have 10 bays, 10 cars can charge at the same time. And then you're the 11th person sitting there waiting for the other cars to charge. And now you're delayed for, let's say, 3 hours before you can actually finish your charge and then you can move on. Isn't that going to be hard to compensate? You most likely would just move on, go to the next station. But if the next station, as this lady has had, I think that will be a little bit hard. So there is a lot of people saying that the charging infrastructure is just not there. And I totally agree with that because personally, I actually have had the same situation. But again, I drive a plug-in hybrid, so I don't need to plug in. But I've been at places where I've gone to the country and there's only one charging station in the town. And if you look at it, going around the whole city or whole town, you have to drive another, I don't know how many kilometers to get to the next available charging station. So there are just not enough charging stations out there. And there are a lot of cases where I go to a charging station and you would see that, oh, the plug is actually broken. You cannot plug it in. It's broken. Nobody fixes it. I actually go to like my dentist where he is. There's actually four charging stations there, but every single time I go there, majority of the time, it doesn't work. They're offline or they say not available. And what is worse is there are some charging stations where they do charge you money to charge, and they're still not available. So they make these charging stations, but they they just don't maintain them. And that's where I think a lot of the EVs are having trouble. Yes, definitely there are cases where if you have a level 2 charger at home, there's no problem of charging your vehicles. So if you need to charge it overnight, you will be able to drive whatever rating of your vehicle is throughout the city and all that, and everything will be fine. But I don't think Canadians are ready to drive an EV across Canada and have a vacation. You would actually have to spend a lot of time trying to find charging stations and be able to find what you can drive, like where you can drive, and plan every single step. Personally, I have noticed myself. I always ask my wife, what are we going to do tomorrow? And when are we going to leave the house? So that I can actually plan when do I actually go and set the departure time of my charger so that I can actually get it fully charged, and that by the time I want to leave, it's just fully charged and I can actually use the EV range. But that's something that most of us don't do when you have a gasoline vehicle. You just pop in the car and drive away, right? But when you own an EV, there is a lot of planning that you need to make. And how you use the vehicle becomes a little bit different. You always have to plan and think about when you depart, when you leave, and set it up so that it will actually fully charge just before you leave. So there's pros and cons on this. And maybe that's why I would say a plug-in hybrid is a good way to experience the EV, but then not have that range anxiety. So now I've jumped over to PlugShare. It's a website that actually gives you all the charging stations around the area that you live. And it's a good source. And that's another issue that I've noticed is every charging station brand actually has their own app. There's no centralized location to get all the charging stations that you need. Some of them are connected to others, and you can actually see other charging stations. But even this plug share, I'm not sure if this is 100% of all the plugins charges areas that you can use, because some of them are from Flow. Like you can see here, it actually says 24 networks. So it actually would take about 24 different networks and consolidate everything together. And you can see here, this also includes Tesla and Tesla superchargers. And then for most cars, like the Genesis, you guys can't use the Tesla chargers. So definitely you have to uncheck that. And if you actually go and put in your vehicle, it will actually then show you what is related to your car. So what will work for your car and what will not work for your car. So you won't be actually going to a station that totally does not work. So right here, you can see that there are some that are unchecked of the different plugs. I can tell you the J1772 and the CCS SAE is very common. The Teslas are very common for people who own Teslas. But then you look at here, not bad, right? You can actually see in the Greater Toronto area, all the way to Ottawa, there seems to be a lot of chargers. But then when you look at these in between, like just an example here, you have one charger here. This one is, there is one plug, one station. So if one person's charging here, you'll have to go to the next. So when you go to the next, it's a provincial park. One charger, two plugs. So two possible ways of charging. And then you go to the next one, it's a coffee shop. And this one actually says that one plug, unknown what it is. So you already look at this area, there's not that many more chargers that work. This one is a Tesla and it's not networked, so this one for non-Tesla vehicles, you cannot charge. So it's not that easy. So let me go and untake this off, the plugs off, and turn off the Tesla superchargers. So now you can see the area that I was looking at, that Tesla is no longer there. So between here which actually has one station, one plug. If someone's plugging, the next closest really one, if you're going to your destination, maybe this one. And this one is also one plug. This one is much better. You have one Tesla, one J1772, and one Tesla Roadster. So again, same problem. There's only one plug. And then if you go over here, you can see there's two plugs. Two 7 kilowatt plug, and here you have two plugs, one for the Tesla and one J1772, which again, don't know what speed it is. So it looks like there's a lot, but when you look at the whole area here, there's not that many. And this one's actually under repair. So looking at, if you're going to the cottage and your cottage is around this area, you're going to have some difficulty trying to find where to plug. So here again, there's one station, two Teslas, and one 1772, unknown speed, unknown. So not as easy to find charging if you're going to go north or more towards the countryside. So for example, if you're going more north here to Sudbury, there's a big gap here where there is totally no charging infrastructure. So there's a Petro-Canada that gives you a fast charger, 200 kilowatt. So this is not a Tesla one. And the next one is many more kilometers away to here, where we have another Petro-Canada. And this one is also similar type. But if you look at it, in between here, there is no charging infrastructure. So there's still time that needs to be done. You can see here, Algonquin Park for sure will not have charging infrastructure. So make sure that you can, when you go through, you have enough charge. If you don't, you may get stuck within Algonquin Park. This video was not designed to say that EVs are not a good car. That is totally wrong. I'm just trying to say that when you actually reach out, go and buy an EV, you have to consider what it's used for. First thing is, you need to make sure that you have a plug at home. You need to make sure you have a level 2 charger at home so that you can charge it when you're at home and you don't have to use as much as the public charging network as possible. Another thing is, if you do plan to use the superchargers or the fast chargers while you're going on a trip, great. Just make sure you plan it and look at how many plugs are there. Because when you think of going in the summer months, going to cottage over a long weekend, how many cars are actually fueling up while going to the cottage? Your experience at the pumps would actually be similar when you're actually charging in the public charging infrastructure. And at your destination, is there a level 2 charger? Or do you have to use your level 1 charging, which takes much longer to charge when you need it? So with that being said, are you going for an EV, like the new RZ, or you're going to stay with hybrids or gas-only cars until you see better infrastructure changes? Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please comment, like, and share this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and press that alert button to get notified when new videos are posted. If you'd like to support the channel, you can definitely provide a super thanks. I'll see you guys again next time in the next video.